Now, she's known for her no-nonsense approach to service delivery and accountability. But Limpopo Health MEC Dr. Phophi Ramathuba often finds herself being criticized by some who accuse her of playing to the gallery, especially when she pays unannounced visits to healthcare facilities and speaks tough to employees of the department. This week, she was at it again when she visited Retabile Clinic in Polokwane. There, she warned security guards against selling face masks to patients. She also scolded senior managers for sitting idly by while patients were waiting in long queues. Let's take a look.
The queue is long. She must forget about being a manager. That is why when I was a hospital CEO, because I was a doctor, I had a bicycle accident. How is senior clinical manager? So from 7, these patients, I want them to be finished in the
Let's bring her into the conversation now. We're joined by Limpopo Health MEC Dr. Phophi Ramathuba, who joins us live from Polokwane. Thank you so much for your time this evening, MEC. I know time is of the essence in such a busy portfolio that you find yourselves in. That video that we just watched, it's just the latest one. We now know that is the Dr. Phophi Ramathuba style. Was that always Dr. Phophi Ramathuba, or is this the Dr. Ramathuba that has come out after many years in a portfolio in a department that struggles with different challenges every single day?
Good evening and evening to all your viewers out there, Marshall. I think since I've been a manager, I've never managed sitting in my office, because I know those that you are usually supervising will most of the time give you colorful and decorated reports that do not reflect the true reflections of what's happening on the ground. Those who have worked me while I was a hospital manager knows that I will, before I enter my office, I start by doing the rounds and get the reports as what happens the previous night when we were off. And midday, most of the time, I will also go and check if indeed patients in OPD are being attended to, what rounds were done. Before I knock off, I'll also do the rounds. Of course, sometimes it might be difficult because of the busy schedule, but because the staff already knows that she can come in anytime. And I was fortunate because I used to reside not far from the hospital. It was a walking distance where I used to stay. So even midnight, sometimes I will come and do the rounds, just because there would be reports that some of our personnel, especially nurses, will be sleeping on duty and women will be subjected to deliver. And there was a time when I did the ward rounds midnight, I found exactly the situation being like that. So that made the hospital that I was managing to become one of the best in the province. And at that time, we were even, as a team, being awarded with a platinum award for that. So it's now that having been the political head of a department that is very sensitive, I continue with that style of leadership. It's just that you should appreciate the fact that nowadays there's a lot of social media. There's a lot of people who will take the videos when we will be probably doing such unannounced visit, and there's a tendency of trending of some of this. But I've always managed by walking about, and I usually would not wait to go to a meeting to ask questions, because when you go to the boardroom and start asking questions, you are not told the truth. For instance, even in that video that was there, the operational manager was saying all these pregnant women who have been sitting there from 7 o'clock, and that time was around 1:30, and have not been attended, have not been eaten. Yeah, they've not eaten at all. They were saying to me, these are first timers, so usually first timers take time. And the patients were saying, no, you can look at our cards. We are not coming for the first time. So if I was in the office, I would have believed that story. But because I was there and I could see that is not true, They were telling me they were busy, and one asked, well, how many deliveries have you delivered at that particular day? From 7 to 1:30, only one delivery. And 3 midwives have been progressing one normal vertex delivery the entire day. And we often abuse the issue of shortage of staff, because that's why I was asking the operational manager that the 3 midwives I'm talking about only in maternity, not for the whole primary healthcare. Other sectors had their own professional nurses attending to. Hence, I was saying, until as a midwife, you will now, being an operational manager, do the rounds yourself. And if you are saying they are very busy, you leave the office and come and help them, because it means it's for that day. It's not on a daily basis.
I thought that when I read up about this, this visitation to Retabile Clinic, I thought that it would resonate with so many people in South Africa. The stories about the security guards who took the free masks from the clinic and are selling it to people for 8 Rand each at the door. That is one story. And then the story, as you said, about finding the senior managers sitting there while patients, pregnant women, sitting there waiting for many hours. I mean, these are stories that we are hearing anecdotally across the country every single day. Does it make your blood boil?
Does it make me what?
Does it make your blood boil? Does it make you angry when you come across stories like that?
Yes, of course. Firstly, before I was an MEC, or even before I'm a medical doctor, I'm a human being and I'm a mother. I have gone through labor, and I was fortunate and lucky, because when I was going through labor, I had a supportive midwife, and I had a supportive gynecologist. So millions of South Africans, women, are subjected to this harsh condition. And often, like I said, we always abuse the concept of shortages of staff. I'm the first person to admit that, yes, in South Africa, we've got a challenge in terms of human resources, but let's not abuse. Like, for instance, when we say a clinic will operate 24 hours or will make sure they cater for deliveries, we usually make sure that we do staff them with midwives. For instance, in this particular incident, there is in no way, even if you go to the private facility, where you'll find 3 qualified midwives plus an operational manager, 4 of them, progressing one woman in labor and ignoring and leaving all the other pregnant women who are there for antenatal. It will never happen. So it will definitely make me being uncomfortable as somebody who's given the responsibility. Remember, all the people of Limpopo, when they look at us, they're saying we voted for them, we voted for healthcare, we voted for service delivery. Probably the sector that I'm leading or I'm deployed to, it's different from other sectors, because in this particular sector, it's about life and death issues. So that is why, for me, I can't postpone answers. I cannot wait to get somebody to have an opportunity to cook up stories and tell me things that are not happening. If I get a tip off, whether it's on social media or somebody phone me to say they are selling masks, I would not hesitate to visit that facility without even asking or telling anyone. Just get into the car to that facility. And when I found such, South Africans must forgive me if probably I might probably at times lost the cool, or like some are saying, but I don't believe in that. That's how I am. I'm firm. And there's a difference between being angry or attacking or being firm or being unprofessional. I was just firm to say, how do you expect poor patients who can't afford healthcare to come to the clinic, which is their only hope? Remember, these patients that we are treating in public facilities, they've got no alternative. If they did have alternative, they will not even think twice not to visit us. They will go to other areas, like many of us who are ill-treating them do that. So you expect that patient to pay 8 Rand. If they don't pay 8 Rand, they cannot access. And the nurses, on the other hand, says, but we give security guards boxes of masks to give to those patients who do not afford. And the patient says, no, we are told to buy. And the security guards, no, it's not us who is selling, it's so and so. So, but anyway, that is a matter which I don't want to dwell much, because the team, it's investigating it. Because if indeed we find that somebody took the mask that belongs to the state and sell them. Heads must roll, and police cases must be open, and we need to make sure that we set an example with this particular case.
Now, MEC, we've come through a time where South Africans would not have survived the last few years without our frontline healthcare workers. I'm talking, of course, about the pandemic. But we can't get away about this ongoing view that healthcare workers in South Africa are lazy, or they've got a bad reputation for their bedside manner, and how women especially, we've heard these stories about violence against pregnant women in our various institutions, and the list just goes on. What do you think is behind that? Are these just a few bad apples? And what can we potentially do to change that image of our healthcare workers? But because surely those bad apples are not in the majority.
I agree with you, Marshall. It's few bad apples that are there. Majority of our midwives go an extra mile to make sure that they do work even outside the scope of practice. I think I was with speaking to one of your colleagues, sharing to them a story where a midwife in Masisi Clinic, more than 300 kilometers probably from where I am, who was able to deliver quadruplets. The clinic was closed. It doesn't operate 24 hours. Somebody just came in as she was working. She was knocking off. But she was able to open the clinic and help her to deliver those quadruplets without asking any questions. Because all what she was going in her mind was to say, let me assess how this far pregnant this woman is. If indeed I can still have a chance to call an ambulance, I will do so. But you know, when she started to examine, she found that the patient is already fully dilated and the membranes just ruptured spontaneously. And she started delivering, not one baby came, not two, not three, but 4. And she did that on her own. So we do have those nurses, and you will never hear them making a lot of noise on social media or complaining about how much we are ill-treated. And those are in majority. But there are those who are few and who needs help. Firstly, what we usually do is that we need to get through our wellness program, wherein some of them must be referred to try to understand if there are no any other social issues that are happening. Some of them are into debts, and some of them are in abusive relationship at home. Then the anger from when their husbands are beating them up, it's got to be reflected and displayed on the patient, because they look for a vulnerable person to can be able to show their own side of the strength, because violence can only produce another violence. So we usually do all those. But of course, we also apply consequence management where we see that this is just a bad attitude. And probably what your next question, which is what needs to be done, I think we have started our relationship with the universities that are also training professional nurses in our province, the 2 universities, that we need to start looking at our training. It's not only professional nurses, by the way. It's actually healthcare workers across the board. There are some doctors whom you would not want to listen to horrible stories that patients share with you about. There are other, even pharmacists, you will hear such stories. So we need to start at the training, whether it's a university or it's a college, to say the type of training that we are providing to the current professionals that we are producing. Does it talk to the ethics and the morals? Does it really preaches the batupili? Because we can't just teach them the physiology and anatomy and pharmacology. We must also teach them what is important in it, and the importance of ethics in our profession, which is about life and death. We must also, within our society and our communities, you know, I had a meeting with members of South African Council of Churches, and I'm glad they did agree, because they were also raising similar issues about the attitude. And you won't believe that some of these reports of selling of masks I get from such credible institutions, and I'm able to pick up some of these attitudes that I hear. And they would have done their assessment and checked the nurse-patient ratio before they can even complain. Because an institution like Council of Churches, it's not just an institution that doesn't have credibility. And when they say some of these things, and I do my investigation, I'll find that they're the same. So we were talking to say, remember the patient who is ill-treated, probably it's your church member, it's your congregant. The nurse or the doctor or the pharmacist who's ill-treating this patient, it's also your congregant. And the manager who is idling in their offices and not attending and managing the facility are also your congregants. We probably need to go into partnership to start to look into how do we then bring back those ethics and morals within our public service. And I don't think it only affects hospitals and clinics. It's every public sector. When you go and talk, you will hear that. But lastly, we must also, as the department, which we are doing on a daily basis, one of the reasons why I manage or I lead by moving from one facility to another is to pick up some of these challenges. Because some of these managers do not even fix X-ray machines when they are broken, which in turn demoralizes the very same nurses, the very same doctors. They don't procure equipment for them. When doors are fixed, are broken, they don't fix them. They just idle in their office. So when you do the round, you sometimes pick up and sometimes you even change. You would have noticed that there are many facilities that we've overhauled the leadership of those facilities. And in overhauling them, we enjoy the fruits of what we've done. I was in Mukopani the other day in hospitals, and I was proud to see that young man, what he was doing in terms of understanding. He knows the hospital in and out. He can tell you how many patients are admitted. And Mukopani is our biggest hospital in the entire Waterberg district. But he knows what is going on and what's happening. Those are the type of leaders that we currently need. So as a department, we must also play our role to make sure that healthcare workers are provided with the resources that they need, so that even when we talk to them and we are able to charge them, we should be able to say, but we did our part. Why can't you do your part?
Now, MEC, unfortunately, our time is running out, but I can't let you go without just asking you to reflect on another viral incident that really brought you to the national attention last year. And I'm talking about your visit to the hospital in Bela, where, again, on social media, you were captured interrogating a patient, an undocumented foreign national at the time. Now, in the course of this interview tonight, you said you're aware of the role of social media and how that has changed how people in public office come across in the public. You've also said you're aware that sometimes your anger gets the better of you when you're dealing with these kinds of stories on a day-to-day basis. Could I ask you just to reflect back and say, how do you view how that all played out? I know that at the time you really stuck to your guns because you said, I remember there's a story that you told repeatedly about foreign nationals in Zimbabwe who were coming across the border specifically to come and get healthcare. And that means that the healthcare system was being abused. Taking all of that into consideration, how do you feel about how you came across in that moment? Because in as much as there were a lot of people egging you on, saying, that's it, don't take any nonsense from foreign nationals. Some people saying that there were others that were saying that you were xenophobic. Where do you stand on how all of that played out now, a few months on?
Look, when an incident is played, or when a video is played, depending where you are standing or you're sitting, you will view it to reflect who you are and where you are, depending on the situation you are in. Let me just give you an example that on the very same day, when I said to the admin clerk, in the next 30 minutes when I come back, I want to find these patients being their files open, because the delay was everywhere. The files were not being opened because the manager was on 2-hour lunch while leaving one staff member to be working there alone. So when I came back, the patients were seen in less than 20 minutes, had their files. But what I was doing in the background, where you can't see, I was able to meet with the matrons and the clinic manager, sharing with me their frustrations. And the frustration is exactly about what you are asking me. The patients who come in they don't give us the correct names. She had a long list of that patient, the files. Now that they've started to ask for proof of identification, then that is when the patient cannot produce. Then they say, even if you are a foreign nation, we are not refusing to help you, but at least give us some proof of identification. And the proof was showing somebody else, while the names on the files, it's somebody, a poor South African whose ID has been taken. Imagine when that patient died, we're going to issue a death certificate with the name of a South African who's out there living life. And one day when they go to the bank, they will be told, by the way, you are dead because you have been registered with Home Affairs. So when I reflect and go back, every day on a daily basis, we are dealing with this matter. I'm not xenophobic. I was raising a principal matter to say to a patient who came to the country illegally, registered the records illegally, jumped the queue of an electives operation, not even an emergency, wherein many South Africans are waiting and Limpopo citizens, South Africans who don't have an option, who public service is their only option, jump that particular queue, whether by buying their space, we don't know, and get operated. And when we ask the question, you have been operated, we don't have any record where to find you, for you to be able to pay, because public service are not for free. You must go through the means test. And if you are not, you are eligible not to pay, you must pay. So this patient is eligible to pay. But the fact of the matter is we will never trace this particular patient. I'm saying this because in the last project that we had in November, it was held in November district. And in that particular project, we had booked, I got ENT surgeons. I mobilized them to say we've got backlog of children with a lot of tonsillitis suffering from them, and ENT challenges. Some of them even don't go to school around winter seasons. We needed to clear these backlogs because the mothers are crying to me. We booked to do, I think it was 70 of those cases. We received more than 170. The mothers, South African mothers, were sleeping on the floor, calling me to say, MEC, this we cannot take it because people who are occupying the beds, we can hear that they are not coming from the country. I called the Human Rights Commissioner, manager in this province, to say, come and intervene because I do not want to be in trouble with you again. Did they come to intervene? No. They say we will talk to Treasury to give you more money. The fact of the matter is, every day South Africans are getting impatient when we don't render them services. So for me to say, when we say, let's implement the law, and then we accuse each other of being xenophobic, it's wrong. All we are saying, I've told you about a woman who delivered quadruplets. The mere fact that this woman was not booked in antenatal, did not even know that she's carrying quadruplets, must make you to ask yourself a question. It's somebody who traveled all the way from outside this country just to come to South Africa and find a facility to deliver. Most of South African women knows our clinics that don't operate 24 hours and those that operate 24 hours. Now, when you see a patient just coming in to deliver at the clinic gate, most of the time, it's somebody who doesn't even reside from within the country, and we've never returned them. But these are some of the stresses that the very same nurses we're talking about have and continue to undergo on a daily basis, and they rely on me. Remember where I'm sitting. The challenges that face nurses, I must also address. And when I address, those who are causing those challenges will find me being unfair to them. Challenges facing patients, if they are caused by nurses, when I address them, the nurses will feel I'm being unfair to them. So that's what makes me to tell myself to say, my principle is do the right thing. And if you do the right thing, at the end of the day, people will begin to understand why you were doing that. What you need to do all the time is the right thing to make sure no life is lost, or at least minimize the loss that we are seeing on a daily basis. Some of the lives that are lost can be prevented or can be avoided. So as I've said when I started, it will depend where are you sitting. If you are in a comfort zone and you have never experienced a situation that the nurses in Retabile experienced this week, to sit from 7 to 1:30 just for a blood pressure to be taken and for you to be, the baby's fetal heart to be assessed if it's still fine. Just for that, you have to sit and without lunch because you are afraid if I go and get food, when I come back, others would have been seen and my space on the queue will be taken. If you have never been subjected to that, you will not understand what South African goes through every day. So my point of advantage
Phophi Ramathuba,
is
I'm
that
so sorry I need to
see
interrupt you there, but we have really run out of time. The Limpopo Health MEC, Dr. Phophi Ramathuba, speaking to us there from Polokwane. Thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. We do appreciate it.